Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters or podderoonies, if you prefer this episode as... We have a film that's coming out when it's supposed to, people. This is great news. So Killers of the Flower Moon is out. And of course, we can only really talk about one man for this movie, and that's Martin Scorsese. So we'll be having a look at his movies for that one. And of course, I am joined by some brilliant guests, Jake and Dustin from the Movie Bonerz podcast. How are you guys?
Doing well.
We're good.
Awesome.
Never been called brilliant before. That was very nice.
All right.
We'll take it.
Compliments all round, always.
Yeah.
So tell us about your podcast and where can we find you?
We're the Movie Bonerz podcast. We're everywhere you can find podcasts, pretty much, and at moviebonerz.com. It's Movie Bonerz with a Z, or a Z, I think, as you would say. But if you go to Movie Bonerz with an S, don't worry. We own that as well, and they go to the same place. Okay. And we just talk about movies that we love, that are exciting, do our own top 10 lists, deep dives into movies, kind of everything. So, huge movie fans.
Anything to worry about for either website, or is it all safe?
No.
It should be all safe.
Totally safe.
Cool. All right.
Should be all safe.
Just making sure. Yeah.
Yes. As safe as movies are, I guess.
Cool. So... Killers of the Flower Moon, then. What do we make of this one, people?
I'm a little hesitant. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the first couple trailers they released for it seemed very preachy to me.
Right, yeah.
And so I was a little like, I don't know.
It's definitely a topic that Hollywood can tend to side one way on. I prefer more of the complicated storytelling like Hostiles or something where there's good and bad on all sides. I do have faith in Scorsese. I think that I've liked almost all of his movies, so it's certainly possible that it'll be great. But I think we'll see. I'm more excited about Jesse Plemons, weirdly, than DiCaprio. Yeah. I do love DiCaprio, but Jesse Plemons is always a joy when he shows up and stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. Brendan Fraser is going to be in it.
Definitely.
Even though rumor is it's a small role, but regardless, he's in it. I'm still planning on seeing it. Chances are high I'm going to enjoy it, even having a little hesitation.
Yeah, I'm fairly excited about this one, and it's interesting. Hollywood has tended to shy away from like America's kind of dark history with this type of thing, and so it feels like they are definitely trying to confront it a little bit more in their movies, and certainly this one looks like they're gonna try that. And yeah, I think, I do have faith in Martin Scorsese, and also it's just exciting the fact that he's combining like his early career leading man in Robert De Niro and his second half of his career in DiCaprio, and bringing those two in the same movie. So I'm like, hell yeah, that should be awesome.
Having those worlds collide and having them face to face will be very interesting.
Yeah, that's never happened before. So yeah, I'm excited. I think they both look really great in it in terms of those two characters, those two actors' performances. So yeah, I think it should be one of his best films in a long time, I think.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the book that it's based on. I don't know anything about like the story. So going in totally fresh.
Cool. Right, we're talking Martin Scorsese films then. So shall we go with my pick then first, people? So I went with Taxi Driver. It was kind of not quite, a very difficult decision.
Yeah.
Really, because obviously you guys went with spoilers, The Departed. So I was like, I didn't particularly want to go with another like gangster film. So just to change it up a little bit. And obviously Goodfellas is probably his best movie, I would say. So I was, and there's a lot of, I'm not sure there's too much like new things to say about that. So for me, it was like between Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, because one, I have seen both those films before, but I haven't seen them for a really long time. So I really wanted to revisit either one of those. And I think what just pipped it for me with Taxi Driver is the fact that I'm quite a big Quentin Tarantino fan. So, and he's been talking a little bit, well, of what information we've had about his new movie. He described the main character as Travis Bickle-esque. So I was like, you know what, let's pick that and just see what he's going for with that character, potentially the movie critic. So I was like, yeah, let's go for Taxi Driver for this podcast.
All right. Interesting.
I think it's a good choice. I was definitely interested when we picked The Departed. I thought that we might throw you off because Goodfellas does seem like the obvious choice. Yeah. But we wanted to kind of avoid that obviousness and then also kind of do something different. I liked that you chose Taxi Driver because I had never seen it. It's one of the handful of Scorsese movies that I've been meaning to get around to. And I'm glad you didn't pick Raging Bull because it's one of the only Scorsese movie that I found fairly boring and wasn't a big fan of.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong there because like... It's kind of really depressing as well. So I was like, you know what, I don't, and it's quite long. So I was like, I'm not sure. Nah. Okay. I think that is like one and done, you know, it doesn't have too much rewatch value.
Yeah.
Even though De Niro is obviously amazing in it. But
always.
So what happens in Taxi Driver? Well, a mentally unstable veteran from Vietnam works as a nighttime taxi driver in New York City where the perceived decadence and sleaze fuels his urge for violence and action. And he decides to have a mohawk as well in that. Naturally.
That's a great caveat right there.
Yeah. So, Dustin, initial reactions to this one. What did you make of it?
So Taxi Driver, I feel like I have a decent history with the movie. My dad, when I was younger, would always bring up Taxi Driver as being like, when you're of age, you got to see Taxi Driver. And my dad's opinion of being of age was still pretty young, definitely younger than what my mom would have approved of.
Okay.
First time I ever saw it, I had no clue what to make of it because I was young. The whole movie's got like prostitution. You got rich slobs kind of shooting their load in the back of his cab. He's trying to like stay stable, but not all that much. But I definitely enjoyed the performance as a kid, and it was De Niro, so I grew up with Goodfellas. So anytime his name was on a film, it was like you just automatically were a fan of it. It kind of felt like. As an adult, when I watch it, I've always been a fan of it, especially after I kind of finally got it when I was a little older and all that. But I definitely enjoy Taxi Driver. I think it's more intense than I think people might give it credit for, because the underlining story of how he's dealing with his like PTSD and just kind of being back in New York City and not in a war, his drive to protect, Iris at some point, even though they have no basis of a relationship beforehand, how he feels about potential love or human connection that he suddenly has that kind of feeling of betrayal with. I think the movie's a lot darker than I think some people might remember as well. But I love Taxi Driver. I think it's great.
Jake, initial reactions?
I liked it as well. For seeing it for the first time, I can see it being a movie I'll watch more and get more out of as well. It has a lot to it, and I liked De Niro's Travis Bickle character a lot, and his performance, I think, obviously carries the movie. It's the whole, it wouldn't work without him and how he portrays that character. I was definitely on his side in the beginning, and then when he takes his date to the dirty movie, I was like, you're not all there. Like you're struggling to figure out or interact with society, or there's some screws loose or something. And he kind of goes back and forth between getting a little crazier and also kind of accidentally being a hero, or being a hero but not because he has fully noble intentions. I liked it. I think it was very, very interesting. And I always like Scorsese and how he is able to kind of pull the more despicable parts of society in with the parts that we all like and enjoy and cherish, of love and kindness and goodness. There's always that conflict in those movies. And so you're like, I don't like this guy, but he has some redeeming qualities that you can't fully write him off.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I love Taxi Driver as well. I was a bit like you, Dustin. I watched it pretty young and thought it was pretty violent, but cool though. And certainly this film, you get inside Travis Bickle's head, and obviously at a young age, you don't really fully understand all that stuff. But certainly watching it now, you're like, this guy's complicated.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so there's definitely like a kind of weird innocence quality to him, especially when he goes to takes Betsy to the porn theater. It's kind of weird as well. We picked 2 films with scenes with porn theaters in them, but there we go.
That didn't click with me until I was rewatching Taxi Driver and was like, oh, weird.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think Martin Scorsese is just really kind of brilliant with the camera as well. He's saying so much as well. Mm-hmm. So directing then, like Scorsese's directing tells you a lot about who this guy is at times without him having to say anything. Like, I like the cafe scene where Travis is having a drink with his fellow cabbies, firstly from De Niro's acting, that he really doesn't want to talk to these guys much. There's a moment where he notices across the cafe that there's these 2 black guys seemingly staring at him, but you don't know that for sure because they've got like sunglasses on. And Scorsese uses a nice little like track on the black guy and a big sweeping shot on Travis as Doughboy is trying to like talk to him unsuccessfully. And then like the shots are expressive enough to suggest that Travis could be a little racist. And it creates a little tension there. Then when Travis puts aspirin in the water, like the camera goes right into the water, and the bubble sounds get louder. And it's like Travis is really trying to block out his surroundings. So for me, it's like a prime example of like visual storytelling, telling you, way more than what's actually being said in dialogue. So that was definitely a scene for me where Scorsese is at the peak of his powers so early on in his career.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm with you, man. I think seeing Travis he's like watching the other people in the cafe. He has no interest in the guys that he works with, but seeing that separation that he doesn't even try to hide, but at the same time, I don't think he purposefully does it. I think it's just a natural thing for him since he's just not connected to everything around him.
Reality sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think at the point where like Travis decides to change his philosophy on life, shall we say, anti-hero mode, the direction from Scorsese starts to be a bit slicker and more precise, especially when he's handling the guns and with the salesman. And you have like now like a classic bird's eye view shot on a load of guns in a case, like the way Travis puts them in the case and the way he's like aiming the guns and whipping them out of his holsters. It's all like framed really nicely. There's some like really nice quick and slick camera movements too. this was not what we were seeing before, of this very like uncomfortable, unpredictable feeling you're having watching Travis. But now you have like a similar feeling for this character, but in like a more focused way, that this film is now like building towards something, but we don't know exactly what yet. So I kind of like how Scorsese changes it up in terms of how Travis is portrayed.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts as soon as he kind of makes that decision and he's like, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start being more regimented. The film definitely seems more regimented as well, that it moves a little bit faster and it's more intentional with a lot of those things. Whereas in the beginning, I think the film brings across Travis's feeling of kind of being lost and drifting through the city and wandering around at night, not really knowing what to do. I like the scene that you mentioned where he's buying the guns from that guy. Probably my favorite frame of the film was the shot of De Niro's eye through the open action of the revolver. And it's kind of like drawing him in and drawing our vision in as well. That is kind of, enticing him to pursue that.
Yeah, definitely. And in that like final action scene, it's brilliantly done, I think. Like, it starts off with little to like no suspense at all. Like, Travis just rocks up to Harvey Keitel. They have a little chat and Travis just shoots him in the stomach in this big plain wide shot. Then when like Travis blows that guy's fingers away, you have all these like quick shots, like it's following the echo of the gun shot to Jodie Foster's character, Iris, which I thought was a great way to connect her to the action early on. Then after he shoots Keitel again, like Scorsese goes back to this like big wide shot of the hallway, and Travis shoots Keitel again and then walks down the hallway and shoots him to make sure, then walks back and shoots the other guy and walks past him. And then you have like some interesting slow-mo in there, but this quite like static direction just gives the scene this sense that Travis really doesn't know what he's doing at all. And this very unpredictable, chaotic quality the scene has, which is in complete contrast to all these like slick training scenes that we've just seen Travis do. So then you have this like really long, slow tracking shot following back the carnage, just makes it feel that much more violent. So yeah, it's quite an extraordinary final scene for me. A lot going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that whole sequence, I mean, most of the movie is not violent. There's like one other scene of violence in the rest of the movie, but that whole entering the brothel and going down the hallway and killing all those dudes, it definitely feels like an inspiration that Tarantino would take in his work later. And just that whole build up feels a lot like that. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done, and it's beautiful, but also very off-putting at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, even with that like hallway shot, that wide shot, it's almost done like a horror movie. This is definitely like the horror movie part of the film, this end, but specifically in that wide shot in the corridor, like if you change, I don't know, the music, it could be like really funny to me. Like, because he's like going back and forth. There's a fine line there, I think.
Yeah. For all of his rehearsing in front of the mirror, like what you had just said, Martin, it kind of all goes to shit for him, where he's like, well, I'm just going to have to pull the trigger. I'm not anticipating to get shot in the neck and in the arm. I lost my gun. Now I'm going to have to grab the other one and just improvise. The knife doesn't tear away as easily as he thought it would. And
yeah, it doesn't go according to plan.
No.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that, why he's like taped the knife to his boot. I'm like, you're going to have all the tape, like, surely on the knife, maybe still. I'm like, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
The bad guys must be like, oh, what are you carrying? I've never seen a knife like that. I know it's just tape. I need to get it off first.
I can't help, having seen it so many times, I feel it's okay to have this thought, but like when he's taping the knife to the boot, every time I'm thinking, what kind of tape are you using, dude? Because I don't know any tape that's going to hold that long with all that motion.
No.
Yeah.
Just get a holster, man. A knife holster.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
Puts a lot less thought into the knife than he does for that like pistol with the slide that comes out of his arm and all that. It's like that's like an engineering move. Like you put a lot of thought into that.
That's like that's full on vigilante move right there. Full on vigilante.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what I can do with this drawer. I can pull the rail thing out and
yeah, it's like the origin story of a superhero. Like that's his first attempt at a costume.
Yeah. Favorite scene, Dustin? Oh, shot? What are you going for?
Man, my favorite shot, I felt every part of me wanted to be like, don't go with the obvious one that everyone knows with the bloody hand, you know, the gun to his head with the mohawk. And then rewatching it, I do love that shot and that scene. But I think the part of the movie that I think De Niro is his most menacing and just to me personally, the most effective scene from him is right after he's given himself the mohawk, but it's him at the rally for the senator where he's applauding and just kind of standing way out in the back. That scene of him just standing there wearing the glasses and smiling and doing the slow applause and just joining in. To me, that's more menacing than like the rest of his character in the film. Cause you understand he's completely kind of lost it with his own mixed up moral view. You get it, but at the same time, it's like, that's your extremism has finally taken over and that's a bad thing. But I think that's probably my favorite shot is just him in the back of that rally applauding.
Yeah, and even though he's in the crowd, he still stands out and feels separate because he's in a dark green jacket. He has the mohawk. He looks crazy. He definitely feels like he doesn't belong there, which is kind of the point of the whole movie, that he's just separate from society.
Mm-hmm. You do question the Secret Service guys because like one of them has seen him before. And two, he stands out like a sore thumb. So I'm like, let's take care of that guy first before we do anything.
Right.
But yeah, I do love that like little tracking shot. Like he's kind of quite close into a lot of characters, a lot of crowd people just shooting their midriff or whatever. And then it kind of stops to Travis. And then that really quick tilt up to reveal the haircut. Mohawk was a great reveal, I thought.
Yeah. You gotta love the little detail of the button the politicians people.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
Great little spot there. Jake, favorite scene or shot for you?
I liked a lot of it. I think, going back to what you said about how Scorsese tells you a lot about Travis's character without any dialogue, just through the scenes. All of the kind of build up in the beginning of him going around town. There's a scene or a shot where it's a close up of De Niro's eyes, and you just see like the car lights moving, reflected in his eyes as he's just kind of watching the city and seeing all of the junk that's going on, and kind of being influenced by that, taking in that, noticing everything going on as he's driving around at night. I felt like that kind of set up the whole movie and does a good job of giving you insight into what he's feeling or thinking that leads to him to where he ends up.
Yeah, I got to say, like the nighttime photography is really amazing in this, I think. Just giving you that sense of what the 70s Manhattan would have looked like at that time. Really great. I think for me, my favorite shots are kind of when like Scorsese kind of treats the camera like a character itself. And for me, like Scorsese brings so much character to that direction as well. Like it really gets you right inside Travis Bickle's head. And like the opening music is like competing against each other with this like nice melodic music, then goes into this like dramatic drum beat, which is combined with like De Niro's close up with his eyes right in close. Like there's real conflict going on in his head. Then you have some like really interesting tracking shots where you have like two shots of Travis driving his taxi where it's like tracking them, and then all of a sudden goes the other way and meets Travis on the other side. it just brings this like really off feeling. Like it makes you feel very off balance watching the film and brings this very unpredictable quality to it. Then you have like little things like when Travis comes back from a shift and he's got like just $1 on the seat and the camera tilts down and up again to Travis, then down again as he picks the $1 up. Like, really? Is this all I made tonight? Then the first shot that like Scorsese come up with apparently is the phone call scene where Travis is talking to Betsy after she rejected him, and it's so awkward and cringeworthy that the camera's like, yep, can't watch it, nope, can't do it, and tracks down the hallway. He's like, nope, can't watch this, and Travis doesn't deserve to be watched during the scene, so it's kind of like too painful for him. And also you're like, hang on, is anyone gonna come down the hallway as well? So you have like a little tension there too. So I think that just that simple track down the hallway is kind of really bold, really. I'm just like, it brings in so many kind of questions. And
it stood out very strongly to me. And the fact that it pans away from De Niro at the phone pretty early, and then you're just kind of staring down the hallway, listening to his awkward conversation, wondering what's going to happen next, and also kind of feeling like you should move on, dude. You should leave. Like, you should hang up. It's over. You're not going to get it back.
Hang the phone up and forget about Betsy. Just move on, dude.
Just take girls to normal movies.
Right. Right. If there's one lesson to learn from Taxi Driver.
Don't take girls to porno movies on your first date. It's a big no-no.
Wait at least one date until you do that.
So, guys, what is your score for directing for Taxi Driver?
Well, we haven't discussed, so we'll converge, I think.
That's how I like it, yeah.
I put it around, I had a hard time. I definitely think it's high. I put it around 8 to 2 maybe. I think that it does a lot of really interesting things, and the directing and the acting, I think, are so strong. So I'd say around that. What did you think, Dustin?
I had it pretty high as well, slightly lower than what you had it at, Jake. So I was going with like a 7.5, which I still felt is a pretty good score, a strong score for Scorsese's first real outing with this. There were parts in the beginning that I was like, you can definitely tell this is early in the learning process of filmmaking. I respect that. I love his choices. But yeah, so I went just a little bit lower just because there's some moments where it was like, we kind of get it. You don't have to keep a close up on like the lights and the buildings and stuff. We get it.
Okay.
But I still love his directing. So I personally went with a 7.5.
I'm happy to meet in the middle at like a 7.8.
Yeah. We'll go with that. 7.8.
So do you think it's a bit long then in the beginning, like the first act?
There's some, and a lot of directors will do that sometimes, where they get kind of caught up, especially in early work, because they're trying to make an impact, right? You want to catch people's attention. You're trying to do something different, trying to do something new. There was just some parts that just felt like they dragged just a hair too long, that you could have trimmed a little bit and maybe focused a little, use that time in other scenes.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it dragged it all. I always loved Scorsese's pacing. I feel like it's one of his greatest strengths. But I did think that Taxi Driver is a little bit more than his other movies in the sense that it's a lot more of a vibe movie.
Yeah.
That he does the night scenes and the lights and the jazz music and the saxophones and stuff. It's very much like, this is a neo-noir vibe, and you kind of just get into the style, and that kind of just, I think, is less of things happening and more of him just setting a style, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I really like the neo-noir vibe, and I thought it made a pretty big impact on me, so I'm going to go pretty high, to be honest. I think this is pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
So I fucking love Martin Scorsese, so I'm going to go like 9.5, I think.
Okay. All right.
Solid.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me. Right. So screenplay then, like the first half an hour of the film, I feel like you don't really know what to think about this character. There's like a few counterpoints to this character's story, like he gets a job as a taxi driver, but he can't like sleep at night and seems to hate the city around him. He's like uneducated. He doesn't know what moonlighting means. Like he watches porn movies at the theater, which is quite weird, obviously. But then he asks out Betsy, this like political campaign worker, and she agrees to have like coffee with him. But you get like the sense that she's just like humoring him. But things are looking good for Travis in this moment, I would say. But then like they decide to see a movie, and you're like, oh no, he's going to take her to see a porn film.
The coffee scene, it feels like it could be a romance movie, like it's on the verge, and then he just ruins it all.
Yeah. Porn is bad, people. Then from then on, it's a film where like Travis descends into this dark person, and he doesn't really care about anyone after Betsy doesn't want to do anything with him. Then the film like definitely tries to bring a balance of empathy towards Travis as well as thinking this guy is a bit of a weirdo. So I think the film for me does an interesting job of like balancing those two things of like, this guy is kind of weird, but you kind of feel sorry for him at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys get that same feeling as well, or is it kind of balanced too much in the weirdo sense? Or
I would say I agree with you. I think the first like half hour of the movie definitely feels like his overnight shift, where it just feels kind of monotonous. You're just like, he's driving around, he's like writing letters or journaling to his parents, maybe, or just inner dialogue coming out. But the balance of it, I think, is interesting because I don't think it ever actually balances out. I think it gives you that sense that it might, especially when Betsy first agrees to have coffee with him. And even when he kind of decides to like rescue Iris, you figure, oh, we're going to have a little bit of both. But I think it never actually does balance. And I think that was on purpose and makes the movie kind of what it is. I like that just edge of imbalance.
I was looking at it as like something that's like slowly toppling and getting off balance over time. That he starts out as making like slightly weird decisions, but also seems generally nice or good or could get this girl to like him and whatnot. And then you just start to wonder like what exactly is wrong with him? Where is it going to go? And he kind of ends up swinging way further back and forth between like plotting to assassinate a senator and then going all the way back over to being a hero. And so you don't really know, like, are you generally good or are you not? And I guess the complexity of the answer makes it more fulfilling that there's not a clear answer if he's a hero or not.
Yeah. I think when Travis has this like change of mindset that he's going to like do something with his life and really, is really interesting because there's no like specific scene, I don't think, where you're like, oh, he's changed now. And I think it's somewhere between like Betsy leaving him, Travis hearing about Scorsese's cameo character wanting to like shoot his wife, and him buying the guns. But what makes this film so compelling is the fact that you don't know what Travis's plan is at all. Like, you have this story about like the presidential campaign going on in Manhattan. Like, Travis even meets the guy Palantine in his cab, but you never really know if he's gonna be Travis's target. Like, you hear what he's been writing in his parents' anniversary card, then has plenty of money, and that he now works for the government, which is a lie, obviously. And he even lies about this to Iris, Jodie Foster's character. But is he, though? Has he convinced himself that he's working for the government? This film is building to something, but you don't know who the target is going to be. Then later, when Travis is in dodgy Mohawk mode, he does try to kill Palantine, and you think, because he does go for his gun in his jacket, but he's seen and runs away, you're like, he clearly hasn't planned this very well. But in the next scene, he doesn's seem upset or angry that he failed. He's just like, I'll just kill the pimp I met earlier. Travis Bickle is like the definition of an unpredictable character, I would say.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And I wonder how much he knows himself, or if he's like, how much of it is his delusion that he's actually decided certain things, if he's convinced himself of certain things, or if he generally doesn't know and is lost and is trying different things to see if it will fulfill him or not.
And it's just interesting with like his interaction with like Jodie Foster's character, because he just feels like he needs to do something. He needs like a purpose in life, and other than taxi driving and just taking all the scum of New York around places, which he feels like, and he sees, he's been rejected by Betsy. He clearly isn't really in the same kind of cultural class, if you will, as her. He kind of realizes that, I think. And then when he sees Jodie Foster, as a really, was she 14 or something, as a whore, as a prostitute.
12 and a half.
Yeah, 12 and a half.
Yikes.
Even for a character like Travis Bickle, he's like, I need to save this person.
Yeah.
So he's just grasping at just someone who doesn't really care either. She's like really fine with doing what she's doing. Possibly she's very much disillusioned by, Harvey Keitel's character, but like she doesn't want to be saved anyway. So it's just, it's a real big conflict for Travis Bickle to like try and save this person mentally anyway. It was like of trying to save someone that doesn't want to be saved necessarily.
Yeah, I really liked how the story builds and how you can see Travis's reasonings as things go on. And I think it starts with Scorsese's cameo character in the back of his cab telling him about how he's going to use violence as kind of justice, to feel like against his wife, he's going to feel some sense of justice by killing her. And I think that maybe opens Travis's eyes to some possibilities. And then when he is in the shop and he stops that robbery and kills that guy, that's kind of his first taste of feeling a little like a hero, which I think is interesting. But also he's getting thanked by the shop owner. It generally goes well, even though it's abrupt and kind of scary. I don't really get the reasoning for plotting the assassination, like what he has against the senator, other than Betsy being so involved in it. And maybe it's a way to get her to switch her focus or something. But I definitely get the reasoning to then turn that and use extreme violence to save Iris. And that, I think, all came back from where the story led you, which I like.
Yeah, I kind of, him going after or plotting against the senator, I was with you for a while. I kind of have a new opinion on it now. And it might just be because I don't like politicians in general. But he has that whole like interaction in the cab with the politician where the way he recognizes him is hearing him complain about taking a cab and not getting the limo. And the body language completely changes when Travis tells him, I think the cities need to get cleaned up. There's so much scum walking around. It has to get cleaned up. Whoever's going to be elected, that needs to be a priority. And the body language in the senator totally changes. You can tell he's uncomfortable. You can tell, like, we got to get out of this cab. And I think, to me, Travis associates betrayal with, like, Betsy and stuff with the politician and with being lied to, and liars are scum. So to me, I think Travis is just kind of sets it upon himself of, I will be the one to kind of clean up some of the scum. So him going after Harvey Keitel's character, he says flat out, he's the biggest piece of scum to walk the earth. Like, he has to be taken out. So I think when his attempt on the senator fails, I don't think it bothers him too much because he knows there's bigger scum to take out. So he just on to the next target. So I think he really justifies himself in that sense of I hate the scum of the earth.
And the city's full of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well with that scene with Martin Scorsese's cameo that you mentioned, Jake, because like I feel like Travis isn't very good at reading people and their emotions. Obviously, you get that with Betsy, but like with Martin Scorsese, like he really wants to kill his wife because she's having an affair, and he's trying to point him in the direction of where she is in the window. But I'm like, well, why are you talking to this taxi driver about this? Why aren't you just getting out and doing it? So there's a lot of like nervous energy from Martin Scorsese. So he's taking all the kind of like the wrong things from this conversation, Travis Bickle. So it's just kind of an interesting thing there. It's like that's quite a lengthy scene. I feel like.
Yeah.
So I'm convinced that Scorsese's character never killed his wife. He's just
talking.
I think he was just venting,
just taking the taxi journey there and just like freaking out and just like, I need to talk to this guy about what I'm about to do. And I'm not convinced that he's ever going to do it, and then Travis is like, oh, okay, people do this. Wow.
I guess I will too. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think that character ever actually went through with killing his wife. I think he was literally just what you said, Martin, of just using Travis as that venting tool. You're here. I want to kill my wife because it's a knee-jerk reaction in that kind of situation. Yeah. It's kind of like listening to violent music or watching ultra-violent films. People can use that kind of stuff to just like vent out abrupt emotions, but never actually carry through with actual violence. And Travis has no clue that there's a separation between venting and doing.
Yeah. Because Scorsese mentions the Magnum, was it 44 or something?
The 44 Magnum, and it's like the first gun that Travis goes for.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what people use.
It's like, oh, if he uses this gun, I'm going to use the gun
right
as well.
It's the best one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way Scorsese's character has him keep the meter running because he wants to pay for the conversation. It's like he's at a therapist's office or something, just in the back seat, and I need to pay you to listen to me.
Yeah. So the end is really interesting to me. So we like hear a voiceover of Iris's parents, who we've never met, basically thanking Travis for saving their daughter, and we learn that Travis has been in a coma. Then the next scene is Travis with his normal hair, and he's chatting with his fellow cabbies, and then Betsy is just seen in Travis's cab, which is unusual. Then they're driving. Like, Betsy's not uncomfortable that Travis is in, that Travis is the taxi driver. She seems pretty calm, but obviously that's countered by the fact that Travis has been in the papers calling him a hero. So maybe she thinks she's got him all wrong. She gets out of the taxi and asks how much it is, but Travis just drives off saying so long. Then you get like a really strange moment right at the very end where you see this like undercranked moment of, fast pace of Travis adjusting the mirror. Then you can't see him anymore in the mirror. So it just puts into question, is Travis still in a coma because we can't see him anymore? But is that just because he's just adjusted the mirror? And the only time we see Betsy in the cab is in the mirror. So, that weird crank right at the very end just puts into question, what reality are we really in this last scene? So what are your thoughts and theories about that, guys?
Yeah, I saw people debating that. I tend to fall on the side of it all being real, and it's a valid argument that he could be in a coma and that's just his fantasy of how it would play out, that people would take his actions as saving that girl and it would be enough to get Betsy interested in him again, and then maybe a fantasy that he would then brush her off or dump her or whatever. But I think I like it better if it's all real. And when he turns the mirror, I did expect there to like be something in it. Like, what are we supposed to be looking at in the mirror? Is there something behind him? But he's just not visible in it anymore, like you said. But if it's all real and he went through all those things, I think it makes it more interesting that he's debatably a hero, but also went back to his job driving a cab at night. And because his actions aren't really from a purely noble place and has some screws loose, obviously, his next actions could be horrific. You don't know where it's going to go. It's just kind of his life continues after that.
Yeah, I'm with Jake. I've never thought anything like twisty about the ending of it just being his fantasy. I've always just kind of chalked it up to he returns to his job because that's kind of his character. That's the one normal thing in his life is this job. So he just returns to it as if that's just what you do. I think him kind of telling Betsy so long and not really caring about her anymore, I think he's made, I don't want to say peace entirely, but just kind of learning to be a little more okay with he doesn't want anything to do with her anymore because why would he? She can't be trusted. I take her actions of being in the cab, being the one to get in his cab and kind of trying to be like, hey, Travis. I totally take that as her being kind of superficial because he's been in the papers. And so she's just trying to like, see, I guess you are. So I think it's a little superficial on her part that she's only willing to give him the benefit of the doubt after he's done something where like he's saved Iris. But I think it being real is more impactful than if it's not. Him kind of looking in the mirror with that, like, because he has that look like he sees something. I'm with Jake. I kind of think people might take it as a hopeful ending, kind of open-ended. I don't. I think what follows in Travis's future is probably more extreme violence, and he probably doesn't make it much longer after that. But yeah, I don't think it's a fantasy world.
There's just so many like acts of violence that you can get away with. I mean, obviously the first one in at the end of this film is not entirely successful, and you don't feel like he's capable of learning from those mistakes necessarily.
Yeah,
and even with that, whether it's real or not, like it's just. It basically plays out like a real scene until you get that very last thing, that weird cranking motion in the shot that you're like, what the hell was that? But everything prior to that is a fairly like normal scene, I would say, in terms of this is real. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think it probably is real as well, and maybe that particular shot where he's adjusting the mirror, he's just maybe. I don't know, it might be just some sort of absence, a mental absence he's had of just, for like a split second, I don't know, going from like Mohawk mode to normal taxi driver mode in a split second. I don't know, something like that. Just this feeling of like, I don't know, he just really wants to fucking kill her or just something like that.
Yeah, even though he looks normal, there's still something underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, interesting lines... people, like, I envy you, your youth. Go on, get laid, get drunk, do anything, because you ain't got no choice anyway. I mean, we're all fucked, more or less, from Wizard. I like that one. And obviously you have the very iconic one, you talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
Yeah.
Is obviously iconic. What's your favorite lines, people?
I really enjoyed his kind of, I guess, journaling and getting that inside of the character.
Yeah,
I liked the someday a real rain will come and wash them all off the streets. It reminded me a lot of like Alan Moore's writing in Watchmen.
Okay,
yeah, Watchmen. Yep.
Like I approached him, seeing him as kind of like a hopeful Rorschach character, but still not entirely noble.
Yeah, the whole "Tears in Rain" line came to mind in Blade Runner.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Dustin, favorite line?
The "someday a real rain will come and wash them away." That line really stands out to me. On the more serious side, that line being that, but the line that I crack up and just shake my head every time because it's potentially the most cringe line in the movie is when him and Betsy are at the porn movie and she's like storming out, or when they're going into it, she's like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, lots of couples go to these movies. I see it all the time. It's just like, dude. But then you kind of have to look at Betsy and be like, how many red flags do you need before you're like, you know what? I think I need to dip.
Yeah.
I laughed at that too, because you're like, this guy might actually think that a prostitute and a John going to a theater are a real couple, and he's really delusional.
Are a real couple. I think he does. And he says so many times throughout the movie of like, I don't know anything about this. Like when he's first introducing himself to Betsy and she asks him flat out, well, what do you like about the guy? And he's like, oh, I don't know anything about his policies. I don't follow politics. I don't.
But I'm sure they're good.
It's like, dude, just, like, I mean, I guess good on you for your honesty about being so disconnected from the world, but at some point, dude.
Yeah. I mean, even for Betsy, when she's walking up to the theater, I'm like, those lights are pretty bright, girl. You know, can you not see all the loads of X's on there?
Yeah,
it's kind of like right in your face.
So for me, like my favorite line is from, I think it's a voiceover one, where he says, the idea has been growing in my brain for some time. True force. All the king's men cannot put it back together again. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of like this very like dark vision he has, and combining that with like a nursery rhyme. Kind of showing his like kind of innocent quality as well, which makes him pretty scary.
Yeah, and simple-minded, that he doesn't have references to Hemingway or Shakespeare or any significant. I mean, I'm not really that like educated either. That's why those are the only names I know of good authors. But that he reverts back to nursery rhymes, children's stories of like, this is what I should grab onto as far as an interesting story. Or it's weird.
Well, and some of those nursery rhymes are not happy-go-lucky. I mean, Bring Around the Rosie, I think, will always be a traumatizing one. So,
yeah. Screenplay score, guys, what are you going for?
I think I put it around a 7.3. I really did like how it built on itself over time, and you see so much of Travis's character. There weren't as many lines or things that I loved as some of his other movies, and so I put it a little lower for that reason, but still very, very good.
Dustin, do you agree with that? Higher or lower?
I would go a little bit higher. I think the screenplay is slightly stronger than like the directing. I think he had really good material to help influence the directing side. So I'm closer to an 8, because I think the writing of watching Travis kind of descend into that really dark kind of madness, but with potential, like where he believes it's all for a good reason. I think it was written really well.
And there's lots of layers to it, which is why it's obviously stood the test of time.
So I guess we're combined. You said a 7.3 and I said an 8. So
yeah, so 7.7-ish maybe.
7.7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
You're going to hit us with another 9, aren't you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, there's a lot of room for interpretation here, and as you say, it's really interesting how there's no specific point of like where he kind of turns really dark. It's very much a gradual process, and I really like that about what Paul Schrader has done with the script here. But yeah, I think sometimes, I guess, like if you were to criticize it a little bit, is that it may be a little bit too like ambiguous sometimes with like where his head is at, because a lot of the time, like certainly the second half of the film, it's just in scramble brain mode and you really don't know what to think. But again, that kind of brings like a really great quality anyway in terms of his unpredictability. So yeah, I think it's still really impressive. So I might go like an 8.9, I think.
Just outside.
He's like, fuck you, Dustin. It's not a 9.
It's like, shoot, I already said it's not a 9. What can I do to get close?
So acting then, like one part early on, which I found fascinating in a little performance from Albert Brooks as Tom in the campaign office. And he's like talking to Betsy, Sybil Shepherd's character, and she notices Travis Bickle staring at her in his taxi. But during Tom and Betsy's conversation, Tom randomly says, "I love you." and Betsy's so distracted by Travis that I don't think she hears what Tom just said. But Tom Albert Brooks just stares at Betsy the whole time until she looks at him again in a wide shot. What's interesting as well is that like Scorsese doesn't actually let you know he's staring at her in that close up until we get that like wide shot. You don't have like Betsy in the foreground or anything. So it just makes it like a little more subtle, like Tom is trying to be, whereas like Travis is not at all. Plus, it's an interesting juxtaposition at the start of this film where like Travis describes like the night streets of New York as trash and scum, but in this scene, it's like the scummy people like Tom are hiding in plain sight in the day too. So I just found that was just a really fantastic scene with Albert Brooks being really creepy.
Yeah, I like all of Albert Brooks' scenes. And think of that same one when she's pointing out that there's a taxi driver staring at her. The camera's on Albert Brooks' face, and he's like looking right at her, and she's like trying to direct him. And he's like, I don't have my glasses on, but he clearly does. And she's like, okay, hold on, let me put them on. And he doesn't move. And then he's like, oh yeah, now I see. I cracked up at him. He's hilarious.
I like the scene when Travis is actually introducing himself to Betsy, and you see Tom kind of keeping an eye on their interaction. The one that makes me kind of chuckle is him poking his head out from behind the wall, just seeing the head poke out with that hair. You're like, whew,
yeah, it's afro.
Not subtle at all, my friend. Not subtle at all. But Albert Brooks does a good job in this movie. I think the acting in general is actually really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially from Robert De Niro, obviously. He kind of brings so many different looks to Travis Bickle. Like in the beginning, he's very like cringe, obviously, with Betsy saying things like, you have beautiful eyes to someone he's just met. And he's very uncomfortable and awkward to watch. You know, what's fascinating though is when like things start to go wrong, there's only one moment where you see him get aggressive, and that's when he goes into the campaign office to confront Betsy and he gets kicked out, and he almost does like this weird like karate move on Tom, but that's about it. Like and that's before he decides to change his life into anti-hero mode. You know, when he does change his mindset, he becomes more unhinged. So like to the security service agent, he has this like very like creepy smile about him, then like super focused when he's practicing his gun draw in the mirror. Then he's like frustrated and upset when he knocks over the TV. But I think it's because he's probably been watching TV for ages, not because he's just smashed his TV. And of course, when he shoots the black guy in the corner shop, he seems like cool as a cucumber. From scene to scene, you never know what you're really going to get with Robert De Niro. I guess, you know, some people would maybe think that that's an inconsistency with his acting, possibly. But again, I think it's just adds to this unpredictable quality for this character, which I really bought into.
Yeah, I buy into it too. And I'm not sure how much of his actions are intentional and how much of them are accidental. And he has so many interactions that they kind of start out normal, and then he starts losing it or isn't able to keep up with it. Like the one with when he's first scoping out the Secret Service agents, and he's kind of like chatting with them and then pointing out there was a suspicious guy over there, and he like tries to give him a fake name and address, and gives him 6 digits for the zip code. He's like, I mean, I guess this, it just starts unraveling, much like his life, I guess.
I've never felt that he was inconsistent or his acting was inconsistent in this. I've always felt like it's very purposeful in De Niro's approach and portraying Travis, because you're not, as a viewer, you're not supposed to be necessarily comfortable with Travis, which I think is an interesting thing for being as iconic of a character, but never actually associated with being, you know, villainized or whatever. But I've just always felt this is how Travis is. You're not supposed to be able to like kind of keep up with him, because he can't keep up with himself. You know, he can't maintain regular interactions with people. I do got to say that Secret Service agent should probably be fired. Actually, that whole team is like the worst Secret Service agents I've seen in a movie. Like, these days I feel anyone that walks right up to one and is like, "You're Secret Service. I saw a suspicious guy over there," and then starts obviously giving you false info, you would probably be put in the back of that black SUV and taken somewhere else. So
bye. You're clearly deranged.
Right. Like, something's wrong. We need to make sure people are okay.
But here's the details for the Secret Service. Here you go. What's your address?
Right.
Robert De Niro in that last action scene is like gone emotionally, like he's the Terminator for me. Like, he's even a bit like zombie-like in that last action scene. Like, you get a sense of regret and guilt in his actions too, I think, because as I said, in directing, like, he's walking up the stairs and like one of the guys he's just shot in the arm is following him, and De Niro is just pointing his gun at him, and I'm like, why is he not shooting him? Then after everyone is dead and runs out of bullets and picks up another gun and tries to shoot himself in the head without even any hesitation at all. And I feel like in these moments, mentally in his brain is just scrambled, just thinking on instinct. Then when he has a little rest and the cops arrive, it's like the real Travis has just come back and he's just realized what he's just done, and he points his like bloody hand to his temple and pretends it's a gun, and he's got like the biggest grin we've seen on his face. Like he's like completed his purpose and it's all a big joke to him. Yeah, that last action scene in from an acting point of view from De Niro is a really interesting choice of being like just that juxtaposition of being so cold during the fight. Then when the dust settles, like he's kind of just like realizing what he's done and just like all he can do is grin.
Yeah, I was an interesting choice with the picking up the revolver and putting it under his chin and pulling the trigger. I never got the sense that he was like suicidal or suffering or in a way that was his ultimate goal, was to kill all these people and then kill himself. And so it kind of caught me off guard, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't know if he was in a very violent mode and ran out of people to kill because he's not going to kill Iris. And so it's just that instinct, like you said, or trying to keep it going and not really present. But it's very interesting. I like that whole sequence a lot.
Yeah, I never took him as suicidal throughout the movie. When he just starts pulling the trigger on the revolver, to kill himself, I'm with you guys. I think that's an act of just, he's still kind of in kill mode. Like you said, Martin, kind of Terminator style, where he's like, everyone's got to die. I think when he does after his little rest on the couch and he does the, iconic bloody finger gun, I think part of him is kind of hoping that the cops that are in the doorway
will shoot him.
And it's not necessarily that he wants to commit suicide or whatever, but I think he's kind of like, has that brief moment of looking for some relief, and he kind of believes that it's going to happen, but who knows? I mean, he looks completely mad when he does the finger gun. I think that's like, he's definitely not at peace with what he did. I think he's just, he understands he's lost it. And maybe that's why he's smiling so much, is because you thought he was disconnected before. It's a whole new level now. But I think viewers can just kind of take it as whatever. It's an open to interpretation. I feel that's more open to interpretation than the actual ending.
Favorite performances, people? Mine is Robert De Niro. Anyone going for anything wildly different?
I would say, De Niro is amazing in it, and I'm not going to take anything away from his performance. I think it's just kind of set in stone. The whole movie rides on his shoulders, so he's obviously going to be carrying it all, and he's going to be top notch. But I think for a performance that's not the obvious De Niro pick, even though he's only in it a couple times, but Harvey Keitel's first scene, his whole interaction with De Niro, it's such a like change of pace from all of the other characters that De Niro has interacted, or Travis has interacted with. He's very like, he's got a super positive kind of jokey spin to him. but everything he says and everything about him is so wrong and gross that I think Keitel just does a really great job of kind of pulling that off, where like you could understand people gravitating towards him because he's so, I guess, happy and kind of jokey, but I'm with Travis. I'm like, he's pretty much the worst scum in this city right now. Like he's, and it's like, and he's so much worse to me these days as a dad, where I'm like, but
it's super gross.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few scenes where we're not with Travis, and there's one between like Keitel and Jodie Foster.
Yeah,
and they're like having a dance, and that's just like.
Oh, so it had been a minute since I've watched Taxi Driver, and when he picks her up off of the bed and he tells her like, "Come to me, baby," or whatever the line is.
Yeah,
I have an almost 14-year-old daughter. He says that to her, and it's instant like, this might be one of the grossest things I've watched. And I was like trying to go in my head like, they don't do.
You want to start shaving your head, and
I was like, right,
go Taxi Driver on him.
But I was thinking like. They don't cross lines in it. They don't cross lines in it. I don't remember them ever crossing any line. No. Luckily, they don't. But I was heightened on that. So I think Keitel gives a performance that people kind of overlook just due to how powerful De Niro's is. But I think Keitel deserves a little recognition for pulling off that kind of creeper status.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. I was really impressed by Scorsese's performance of all people. Yeah. He was very gripping as the dude in the back seat having this conversation, and we kind of talked about it a little bit before, but his manic state, or just the way that he's trying to get Travis's attention and to look at certain things or to do certain things or think certain things. I don't think of Scorsese as an actor, and so I knew that he was in it, and I knew he was in that scene, but I hadn't really seen the whole thing or in context or anything. And it is fairly long. And so I was pretty impressed by that for sure.
Yeah, he's great in that scene. I can't think of another scene in any of his other movies that he's actually in right now, but like, surely he should have acted more because he's great.
The only other scene I know he acted in was in a Akira Kurosawa movie, and he plays Van Gogh painting in a field.
Okay.
And I've only seen clips of it. I haven't seen the whole movie.
All right. Yeah, it seems a shame he hasn't gone in front of the camera more. But acting score, guys, what are you going for?
I went a little higher on the acting than the others.
I'm going high with it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I went like an 8.5 on my end.
I'm going to side with Jake on that one. I think everyone brings a lot of A game to this movie, which is super respectable considering it's like a first outing for some of the biggest names that we have like now. Yeah, I'm with Jake. I'm at an 8.5 with the acting in this movie.
Yeah, I think, De Niro is pretty phenomenal in this. And as we said, like Jodie Foster and Harvey Keitel are pretty extraordinary as well. I mean, I'm well known for like complaining about child acting in movies on this podcast, and Jodie Foster is incredible. Really, just how naturally she acts in this is pretty extraordinary. But yeah, this is all about like Robert De Niro, though. Like just the range in this one movie he's showing us is insane, really. So yeah, I'm gonna probably go like a 9.6, I think.
Nice.
All right.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver gets exactly 52 points.
Nice and round.
All right.
Which is pretty good. Not going to lie, I thought it'd be higher than that, but never mind. I think it just scrapes into the top 10. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.